From downtown Detroit, Local 4 Live starts right now.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on Local 4 Live. I'm Nick Monticelli. Lots of conversations happening in the next 2 hours. It was part of the state budget and now a program aimed at helping new moms and their babies, and families will get some extra help. We're talking with the director of RX Kids about a new boost of funding. And while people are getting ready for Halloween, if you need a good scare, just go shopping for costumes. We're looking at the tricks to get the kids dressed up without breaking the bank. And there's a class over at Michigan State that is ready for it. Thanks, producer Mary. We're talking with a new professor about her new Swiftie class that ranges from Teardrops on My Guitar to The Fate of Ophelia. Oh boy, this whole show is going to be filled with those. Thank you. 8 o'clock here on the dot. New overnight, a ceasefire takes effect in Gaza, raising hopes an end to the war is close. It happened hours after Israel's cabinet approved a deal to pause the fighting and exchange the remaining hostages for Palestinian prisoners. President Trump says he plans to head to the Middle East for the signing of this peace deal. As Alice Barr explains, the news brings rare moments of bipartisanship to Capitol Hill.
Good morning. After so much heartbreak and devastation over the past 2 years, relief is flooding across Gaza and Israel, though much remains uncertain. Word now, the U.S. military is planning to send more troops to Israel to support stabilizing Gaza. Smoke is fading over Gaza, relief rising for Palestinians and Israelis. As the Israeli military announced a long-sought ceasefire is now in effect, and its forces moving to new deployment lines within Gaza. Part of the first phase of a peace deal the Israeli government and Hamas both approved, and President Trump advanced.
I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace.
The president planning to travel to Egypt this weekend for a formal signing and the return of the remaining hostages, 20 believed to still be alive after 2 years in Hamas captivity.
They should be released on Monday or Tuesday. Getting them is a complicated process.
And there are even more complicated steps ahead, including a requirement for Hamas to disarm and leave power, still an open question.
They got to be written out of the future of Palestine.
Cautious optimism on Capitol Hill, where lawmakers in both parties gave credit to President Trump.
What we need is bipartisan support for the peace process, which will be fraught with obstacles, make no mistake.
The biggest challenge, how to bring Gaza back from the ruins and secure a peaceful future. President Trump adamant no one will be forced to leave and that neighboring nations will help rebuild.
We're going to create something where people can live. You can't live right now in Gaza.
The U.S. military preparing options to send as many as 200 troops to Israel to ensure stability and the flow of aid into Gaza, according to 2 U.S. officials familiar with the planning, who noted there will be no American boots on the ground in Gaza. As for how this deal came together, Secretary of State Marco Rubio pointed to some key turning points, including President Trump securing the backing of leaders of Muslim-majority nations at the UN General Assembly last month, getting Israel's prime minister to sign on in a White House visit, and delivering a final ultimatum to Hamas. In Washington, I'm Alice Barr. Back to you.
Alice, thank you much. For the second day in a row, Gompers Elementary Middle School is closed after a student has been stabbed. A mother brought the knife in for her child to use to attack another student. That mom and child are both in custody. Police and other families now trying to figure out why the security guard did not search the mother after the knife set off the metal detector.
Why did that woman get through the metal detectors with a knife? What if it would have been a gun? That situation could have got really ugly, really quick, and it's the school's fault.
There are emotional support sessions for students in the morning and in the afternoon. The district has not responded to our requests for comment. Grosse Pointe Woods is issuing a warning over elevated lead levels in drinking water. The city collected samples from 30 homes and found 7 had higher than normal lead levels. All 7 of those homes have had their service lines replaced, or they will be within the next week. The city will be doubling the amount of homes they test to determine if more action is needed. And in Melvindale, they remain under a boil water advisory. The advisory that was issued on Wednesday after a sudden water shutoff caused low water pressure. Residents say their tap water was coming out orange or pink. The problem started with a valve issue at the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department, leading to a shutoff in Melvindale. So residents have to boil tap water before drinking, brushing teeth, washing dishes, or cooking. The city says they are flushing the water system and collecting bacteria samples. They hope to have the issue resolved today. A water distribution is scheduled to happen later on this morning. Let's take a live look at T-Mobile Park in Seattle, where the Tigers and Mariners will play a win-or-go-home Game 5 tonight with the ALDS tied at 2. First pitch is at 8:08. Tarek Skubal will be on the mound against the Mariners. The Mariners' George Kirby. The Mariners have had Skubal's number so far this season. Let's hope their bats go silent tonight. Now, if the Tigers win tonight's Game 5, they're going to have a quick turnaround for the ALCS. That game is in Toronto on Sunday against the Blue Jays. However, you're going to have to pick what you want to watch because the ALCS game would be starting at 8:03. The Lions, though, are also playing the Chiefs. That game is here on Local 4 with an 8:20 kickoff. Or you can do a picture-in-picture or get a second TV or maybe go to a restaurant and just watch everything at the same time. Let's take a live look over the city of Detroit and the state of Michigan making a big investment to helping moms and their babies and their families. It has been 1 week since lawmakers and Governor Whitmer agreed on a state budget to keep the government running. Along with funding for schools and roads, the budget boosted funding for the RX Kids program by $270 million. This program gives pregnant moms $1,500 and then $500 a month for their baby's first year, helping families cover the costs that are most expensive. RX Kids is already running in 11 communities, and this funding could help expand it to dozens more. So far, the program has provided nearly $15 million to 3,600 families and is helping reduce evictions, preterm births, and NICU admissions. So, to talk more about the program, we are joined now by Dr. Mona Hanna. She is the director of RX Kids and an associate dean of public health at the Michigan State University College of Human Medicine. Doctor, thank you again for joining us. We love having you on the show. This is a big deal because you've been eyeing expanding this program since you started it, and it seems like this is kind of the kick in the pants you need.
This is huge. Nick, it's great to be here with you. From the moment that we created RX Kids in Flint, the idea, the intent was never for it to just be for Flint, but really to be for mamas and babies and communities across Michigan. Yeah. It was just to figure out how to do it, but it was all about quickly expanding because families all over the state need help. This is a hard time. This is a really expensive time. It's a really critical time for brains and development, and we want to be able to bring it to all babies.
You know, we have heard from so many couples and wanting to be moms and dads that they just can't do it because of the costs of raising a child right now. This probably could kind of turn the page for some people and make it possible.
That's what we're seeing. You know, it's estimated that the cost just in the first year of life is an extra $20,000. That is crazy when you add up baby expenses, cribs and car seats and diapers and childcare, which is prohibitive, and the lost wages because often somebody has to stop working. So this is helping families breathe. We hear a lot about a weight being lifted off their shoulders, the ability to stay home a little bit or the ability to pay for childcare. It's giving folks that freedom and flexibility and really the dignity to be able to raise a child.
Yeah, and dignity is that. What a key word there too. Some of the stats are astonishing. I was looking through some of the reports coming out so far. You've seen eviction rates drop 91% in the city of Flint for new moms. I don't even know if you were expecting it to be that high.
Yeah, no, our data is incredible, but also not surprising. This sounds like a new crazy genius program, but it's not. It's done across the world. Across the world, societies say, hey, we see you, we hear you, we know how hard it is to raise a family, so we're coming alongside you. 70% of countries have some sort of child allowance, and we are the only peer nation that doesn't have some sort of paid leave or maternity leave. And in all those countries, we see this similar data. We see stronger family financial security. They can afford the roof over their head. They can get better food. And that's what we're seeing in our data, a massive drop in evictions, housing stability, food, nutrition security. Families can eat and not go hungry. And we also saw this same kind of data when we expanded the child tax credit during COVID and we dropped poverty to its lowest level for kids in 2021. So the data is not surprising. happening, but the data is it's at a scale that hasn't been done in the United States, and it's overwhelming. A lot of new research also shows that the health findings for babies, we just released those, a population level decrease in premature babies, a population level decrease in small, low birth weight babies. We're preventing NICU admissions, and I have never been part of anything where we have seen such quick improvements at such a massive scale.
You know, one thing that I didn't think about until you just talked about paid leave is that I'm guessing that this allows new moms and maybe even new dads to stay home a little bit longer and spend some quality time with their babies instead of being forced back into work right away.
Yeah, Nick, I remember a mom right before we started the program who missed her newborn appointment. The baby was 5 days old. It was a premature baby, 5 pounds, needed to come in. And we called the mom. I'm like, what? Where were you? We needed to see this baby. And at 4 days, that mom had to go back to work. And that is not an uncommon story that families, because it's such an economic shock, this window, they're often going back to work so quickly. So we are hearing that moms and dads are able to stay home. We're in the Upper Peninsula, and there's a mom in the UP. She's like, this is my 3rd kid. And finally, you know, the baby's dad could stay home for a couple days because of this program. So yeah, we hear that. And we also hear that folks are able to pay for childcare. So it's both situations. And that's the beauty of flexible support.
Okay, we are going to take a very short break here. When we come back, I want to pick your brain on expansion. I don't know if you can name cities, but I know you've got some plans. So we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. 8:13 here on Local 4 Live. Again, joined by Dr. Mona Hanna with RX Kids. Okay, I know you said at the top of this interview that the program was never just intended for Flint, and I know you've got big expansion plans. 11 communities right now in the state of Michigan. With this additional funding, how many more communities can you touch?
Oh, Nick, this is so exciting. This funding is huge. It's an investment. It's a commitment to babies and families and communities across the state. With this kind of increase in funding, we will be able to expand really to dozens of communities across Michigan. But the beauty of RX Kids is that it's still a public-private partnership. We have this money from the state, and it's amazing, but we still need other support to make the program whole. And when we have the 2 funding streams together, we can, within months, launch in other communities. We've had some communities that have been ready to go and have already raised some money, and this will get them over the edge. For example, Ypsilanti and Saginaw will be able to launch soon because they've already raised some money. So we're working hand in hand with other high need communities to raise the now smaller amount of additional dollars. So it's less of a lift from philanthropy or municipalities to go live. So you can learn more on our website, rxkids.org. But this massive investment in our kids and families, this kind of the show of love from our state government is going to be able to lift up almost 1/3 of the babies in our state. About 30,000 babies every year will be supported because of this program.
Wow. Okay, so is that kind of a prerequisite then? If a community is looking for some help, there kind of has to be some buy-in on their part, either through private dollars or locally funded to kind of match the dollars you'd like to bring in?
Yes, then that's how it's been for all of our 11 communities. We have a chunk of money from the public side, the state side, but then municipalities come in or philanthropy comes in. And it used to be a larger lift from philanthropy, but now it's not as large, so we can launch more rapidly. It's not as much money we have to raise on the private side. So, we're ready to go, we're ready to launch, but it's still a public-private partnership.
So I know you mentioned Ypsilanti and Saginaw are two that have done that already, and this will kind of push them over that finish line there. Are there any communities that you would like to target at the beginning here, not the beginning, but with this additional funding?
Yeah, so
Besides
there's a
all
lot
of
the entire nation. How about that? We are very data driven. So we want to go to communities where there's high need, where there's high rates of child poverty, where there's a lot of babies born without the resources they need to thrive. So obviously top of list is Detroit. There's a lot of Wayne County communities where, families are struggling. We want to get to the rest of the Upper Peninsula. There's a lot of hospital closings in the UP. Rural poverty has lots of issues. There's places like Muskegon and Benton Harbor and Port Huron and Jackson. So, rural northern Michigan communities. So there's a lot of communities that when we look at the data, they could absolutely benefit from this. So we're going to be strategically working with a lot of those communities to get now the not as much match dollars to be able to launch as quickly as possible in 2026.
Well, and that seems like it takes away a barrier because, trying to find that, well, I'll call it the upfront cost there, which I know it isn't, but kind of is, probably was a hindrance for some communities.
It was really hard. And that's how most of my time was raising money, and it's still raising money to make this possible. For example, the city of Pontiac went live earlier this year, really thanks to the amazing support of a foundation. The Alex Family Foundation committed $3.5 million. Like, it's amazing. And we were able to match that with some of the state money we had and other philanthropic support, and they were able to launch. So we really do need some champions now, but we don't need as much money. But we do still, we also want city and municipal buy-in. We want communities to be excited. We want them to host baby parades and also be part of this joyful celebration of families, this historic investment that is changing the trajectory of entire communities.
So just to get in the weeds here for a second, this is $270 million from the state. Is this on top of what you were already given, or what's the difference, I guess, is my question?
Yeah, so before this, we had raised about $100 million from a mix of public and private dollars, which in and of itself is like gobsmacking to have raised that amount of money in like a couple years. And that was a little bit of state money, and we had municipal money, but a lot of it was foundation money. And then this is, once again, just a massive commitment to be able to launch in many more communities and to see the success that we're already seeing in the communities that were live expand to more places.
Gotcha. Producer Mary says we're out of time, but I have one more question for you. If I am a community or if I am a expectant mother, is all the information on the website? Where do I go to learn more?
rxkids.org.
Okay.
rxkids.org. Everything's on there.
Got it. Okay, Dr. Hanna, thank you so much, and congratulations. I know this started as a passion
Congrats
project for you, but it is
it is a win for our babies. This is a congrats and a commitment to all of our babies in the state.
Because you said 100,000 babies every year in Michigan?
100,000. There's about 100,000 babies born a year in Michigan, and this is going to be able to help about 1/3 of them. So about 100,000 over 3 years.
Okay, well, let's just raise more money and help them all then.
Yes, I think next year, let's see even more money so that we can do this for every baby.
Deal. All right, Dr. Hanna, thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
You bet. Take care.
All right, well, temperatures are changing across Metro Detroit, but also across the country. Let's take a live look at Portland, Oregon. Next, how the cooler ocean temps are changing weather patterns throughout the month of February. Let's take a live look in Portland, Oregon, and they are getting ready for a big change. NOAA just announcing the arrival of La Nina, a natural climate pattern where the Pacific Ocean's water temperatures are cooler than usual, causing changes in the atmosphere. La Nina conditions are expected to last through at least February. Typically, La Nina brings drier winters to the southern U.S., while parts of the Northwest can expect more rain. Temperatures may be warmer or cooler than normal. Hey, B.
Now, forewarned weather with Brian Sherman.
Definitely, if you're going to be at the Hudson's, lots to do if it's cold or snowy outside. And we're dealing with a cold morning here as you're waking up early this morning. Some of us, for the second morning in a row, a frosty start as you're heading out the door this Friday morning. With that in mind, the National Weather Service continues our frost advisory for our northern and western tier of communities in light blue. So this does not include Monroe and Wayne counties, as our temperatures are warm enough overnight last night and early this morning that we're not dealing with any frost as you're heading out the door. Tower cam over downtown Detroit and Comerica Park, a very tranquil start early this morning. 44 degrees here in downtown Detroit, but outside the metro, a lot of 30s showing up as you're heading out the door this morning. 34 in Port Huron, 37 Sandusky, 38 in Pontiac, 31 this morning over in Ann Arbor, and 37 down in Monroe. So do warm up the car, grab the jacket. You are going to need a few extra minutes as you head out the door early this morning. High pressure moving off to the east, controlling our forecast for today, but I'm watching a cold front out over the Midwest from Wisconsin back down into northwestern Illinois, Iowa, and northern Missouri. That's going to move into our region tomorrow in tandem with a developing upper level low pressure system that will bring us the chance of rain showers starting late tonight and into the start of the weekend. Clouds and radar forecast agrees, keeping us dry into the afternoon, but after 8 to 9 o'clock tonight, we start to bring in some of those scattered showers. The data not in 100% agreement on this yet, just because that area of low pressure hasn't developed. Nevertheless, cloud cover increases for the start of the weekend on Saturday. We will keep the option open for some showers from time to time, but I do think this moves off to the east and we dry things out late Saturday night and into the end of the weekend on Sunday. Then I'm watching a nor'easter developing, moving across Florida by the time we get to Saturday, and then off the coast of the Carolinas late Saturday and into Sunday with the wind gusts here in red. We're talking 40 to 50, possibly 60 miles an hour, moving up toward Washington, D.C., New York City, and Boston by early next week. So if you're going to be traveling to the eastern seaboard, plan ahead, as this is going to be a nasty little weather maker heading into early next week. Right around 40 by 8 o'clock this morning, 50s by lunchtime, 60s this afternoon. Those rain showers move in late tonight and stick around for the start of the weekend before sunshine moves in and we warm things up into the upper 60s by the end of the weekend on Sunday. 70s move in for Monday and Tuesday, but then I've got another cool down on the way. We're into the low 60s with a little bit of sunshine by the time we get to next Thursday.
All right, B, thank you, sir. Well, are you ready for it? Let's take a live look at Michigan State right now. They're going to be shaking it off with a brand new Swifty class. We're going to talk with that professor next. Good morning, everybody. I'm Nick Monticelli with the Local 4 News Update. Melvindale is under a boil water advisory for the third day while the city flushes the system and tests some samples. Earlier this week, a valve problem with the Detroit Department of Water and Sewerage shut Melvindale's water off. People should keep boiling water before drinking it. Bottled water can be picked up at the Kessie Field House on South Dearborn Road between 10 and 2 o'clock today. Was another 90 minutes of Local 4 Live coming up in just a few minutes. From the Eras Tour to the lecture hall, Taylor Swift is now a full-blown class at Michigan State. We're going to talk to the professor teaching him. And then while people get ready for Halloween, if you need a good scare, just shop for some costumes. The price is astronomical. We're looking at tricks to get the kids dressed up without breaking the bank. And one of the most popular sporting entertainment events for kids is coming to Comerica Park. It's Savannah Banana Ball. And Brian has your forecast in just a minute.
From downtown Detroit, Local 4 Live starts right now.
Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Local 4 Live. Fall is in the air, and that means it's time for some cider and donuts. Happening this weekend, Cider in the City returning to Beacon Park. The festival will feature live music, family activities, pumpkins, caramel apples, food trucks, and of course, some cider and donuts. Plus, for the grown-ups, there's going to be some delicious fall cocktails, craft beer, and grown-up cider. It's happening this weekend and next weekend from 1 to 5. And best of all, it is free to attend. Let's take you now to the campus of Michigan State University, where a new class is getting a whole lot of attention, especially if you're a Swiftie. Have you spent the last week listening to Taylor Swift's new album? Well, at Michigan State, they are using Taylor Swift as a learning lesson. The university launching a new class called Society and the Individual, the Taylor Swift Phenomenon. Joining us now is the professor leading that course. It's Emily Muick, an assistant professor with Michigan State Center for Integrative Studies in Social Science. Emily, thank you so much for joining us. Producer Mary has spent her entire morning looking for every Taylor Swift cliche she can find to put in the scripts. I'm assuming your syllabus is somewhat similar.
Yes, thank you for having me. It does have it is a great opportunity to put in as many plays on songs and other Taylor Swift funds as anybody can think of.
Okay, so I want to dive into the class, but before we get there, I have to ask, like, did you come up with this idea and then go to your dean? And how was that conversation trying to convince them to have you teach a Taylor Swift course?
No, it was actually the opposite. Last fall, we got a petition from a group of students asking us to consider doing some type of Taylor Swift class. A handful of other universities around the country have done similar types of classes where they're looking at Taylor Swift or other pop culture phenomenon. So it came from the students. So I didn't have to do much convincing. The students laid out a very good case. We do some general education topics around sort of complex phenomenon, trying to look at how different social science fields like economics, sociology, history, psychology, political science, how different fields would approach an issue differently. And they laid out a really good case that said, you know, Taylor Swift is such a big phenomenon. She connects to all of these different topics so well. Would you please consider thinking about adding a course like this? And we looked at it and we said, yeah, this sounds like a really good course. They make a great case, and there's obviously student engagement on the issue. So then it was just sort of getting to play with all of the different aspects of Taylor Swift to put the class together, rather than needing to convince deans or other sort of university administration that this needed to happen.
All right, so walk me through the course then. And you know, I say it jokingly, but there really is a lot to learn from the business aspects of how she has conducted herself to re-recording music for legal reasons. There's a lot that you can spend time on here.
There's a ton. Actually, it ended up being a case of needing to cut things out of the class for time rather than needing to find more areas. We're set up in 3 units. So our first unit was looking at things that she and her team have control over. So we spent some time in that looking at copyright law. What did copyright law look like? How did her re-records happen? What was the economic impact of her re-records? And then other things like the history of American pop music and folk music and country music. Where does this come from? What genres is she pulling from? We are now into our second unit for the class where we're looking at the fan experience. So talking about things like in-group and out-group dynamics, parasocial relationships. Fortunately, we've got a new album that's dropped in the middle of this unit. So we're getting to look at some sort of oral history recording of events. What does that look like as you're living through an event? And then soon we'll move into our third and final unit, which is looking at the broader cultural effects. So we'll look at things like the economic impact of the Eras Tour on the different cities that it went to. We'll look at the climate impact of Taylor Swift and her, in particular, of the Eras Tour itself. So really, we're engaging with a lot of really very serious issues here, but doing it in a way that students are excited about, they want to learn about, and they have some sort of personal engagement with.
Sure, yeah, it means something to them, which is key in every class you're going to teach. I'm curious, how many comparisons are you doing to look at, you know, Taylor Swift and her impact, especially economically, versus, say, the Beatles or the Stones on different generations?
Well, we did a whole day on Beatlemania and what that looked like for economically, what that looked like musically, what that looked like for the fans, comparing that to Taylor Swift. So we did Beatlemania, and we also looked at Elvis pretty closely. So we're engaging with a lot of other musical acts, right, that have been very successful, that have been very culturally significant. My students also did an assignment where they looked at the songwriting of Bob Dylan, you know, a very good musical lyricist, right, who was trying to engage with a lot of political events going on, right, and comparing it to her music and the way she engages with especially gender.
Which is a very interesting conversation right now, because I am not a Swiftie, you know, my daughter is, but my understanding and look at some of the videos is that she spent a lot of time intentionally staying out of the politics game and then jumped in when she felt it was necessary. Have you examined that?
Yes, actually this week my students were looking at that transition. She has a film on Netflix called Miss Americana, and some of that she talks explicitly about how she got into that. So engaging with the idea of why might an artist want to stay sort of apolitical, why they might want to stay out, and what does it mean when you get involved in politics? What does it mean for the politics itself? What does it mean for the artist? What does it mean for the actual person who, you know, has this fan following?
Sure, it's not just a political statement, it becomes a business conversation.
Right, and then it also becomes a safety conversation, right? In an age where people have a lot of access to guns, there are lots of security threats. Somebody who's as high profile as Taylor Swift, it also becomes a conversation of, is this going to make people mad? Is this going to increase security concerns? What does that look like? Gotcha.
Okay, so the class itself, is this in person, virtual? How long was the wait list? Are you going to be doing it again?
So it's an in-person class. Fortunately, I'm back to all in person. It is an in-person class. We meet for twice a week, 2 hours each. And it is listed as a lower level class, so it's mostly freshmen and sophomores. Okay. And I don't know if I'm going to teach it again. I had sort of thought of it as a one-off class, but in the last sort of week and a half, I've gotten a lot of emails asking if I'd consider to do it again. So we'll see.
Was there a wait list?
There was a wait list. Interestingly, we had the class is made up of about half of the students are very committed Swifties, really like her music, really engage with her music. But there were a handful of students that took the class out of curiosity, right? They know of Taylor Swift, of course, but they haven't necessarily, they haven't been to the Eras Tour. They wouldn't necessarily consider themselves fans. So there was also engagement from students who maybe didn't think of themselves as Swifties, maybe didn't sort of fully engage. They were just interested in what it would look like to understand this better.
That probably makes for a better conversation in class.
I'm so grateful for them being there because they add such an interesting dynamic between different groups of students, right? It's so nice to have different opinions in class, and I'm so glad they're there.
Yeah. So are you yourself a Swiftie, or is this something that you just kind of looked at it from a purely academic perspective?
Well, at the start of this process, I did not consider myself a Swiftie. I like her music a lot, but the more I put this class together, the more I was researching and reading and thinking about this. I think I'm starting to get close to being a Swiftie at this point.
If we're teaching the class, I think it's pretty fair to say. Okay, one last quick question. What's one of the things that surprised you in all your research?
I've found it surprising to engage with. She's had such a long career, right? She's been releasing music for about 20 years now. And so a lot of my students are 18 or 19 or 20, right? And so they've had Taylor Swift as a leading pop figure their whole life. And it has been so interesting to hear them talk about how they perceive her transition and her growth as a songwriter, because it's sort of mapped onto their whole life, right? The things they listened to when they, were little, sometimes because their parents were playing it, or it was on the radio, or it was being played in, a school playlist. As they've grown up, they've had Taylor Swift growing up with them. And so that has been what's been so interesting to me, because for some of them, she was, she's older, so it was a couple of steps ahead of them, almost giving them advice on what's to come for them, and which I found quite beautiful. So that's been the most interesting to me.
Awesome. Okay, Emily, thank you so much for your time today. And I can almost guarantee you that we could have this conversation again next semester.
Well, thank you very much for having me. That would be great.
All right, have a good weekend.
You too. Bye.
All right, it is 8:40 here on your Friday. If you're feeling the pinch from high prices, there is some good news to come. A live look over Washington, D.C. The IRS is making changes that could mean more money stays in your pockets. We'll break down the new tax brackets and what you need to know before you file when we come back. Now to more of your news headlines, starting in the Middle East, where an Israel-Hamas ceasefire began overnight. You're looking live at Israel as thousands of people in Gaza are returning to their homes after Israeli forces started pulling back. The ceasefire began at noon local time there. That was 5 o'clock in the morning our time. Israel agreed to stop fighting and partially withdraw troops from Gaza within 24 hours. As part of the deal, though, Hamas is expected to release 20 Israeli hostages in the next 72 hours, and Israel will free hundreds of Palestinians from prison. Once the ceasefire is in place, trucks with food and medical supplies will rush into Gaza to help the many civilians who have been living in tents after their homes were destroyed. This is the first step in a plan to end the 2-year war, with Israeli forces withdrawing from some urban areas but still controlling about half of Gaza. Well, is it about justice or revenge? New York Attorney General Letitia James, who brought civil charges against then former President Trump, is indicted by a federal grand jury. She is facing charges of bank fraud and making false statements to a bank, all over a mortgage for a home she bought in Virginia in 2020. The president has been pushing for charges against her for a while now. James responded to the indictment in a video.
His decision to fire a United States attorney who refused to bring charges against me and replace them with someone who is blindly loyal not to the law, but to the president, is antithetical to the bedrock principles of our country.
The indictment comes 2 weeks after ex-FBI Director James Comey, who was indicted on 2 charges stemming from congressional testimony he gave in 2020. Comey pled not guilty. Let's take a live look at the U.S. Capitol now as the federal government shutdown continues. According to the GOP whip's officer, there are no votes expected until Tuesday of next week, so the shutdown will extend. It comes after the Senate again failed to advance 2 competing funding proposals from Democrats and Republicans. Republicans are still pushing for essentially an extension of current funding levels through mid-November. Democrats are focusing on health care, calling for enhanced Obamacare subsidies to be included. At least one prominent Republican is siding with the Democrats.
Leader Schumer and Senate Democrats have courageously taken vote after vote against the partisan Republican spending agreement and bill because that bill continues to gut the health care of the American people.
I also don't think it's good advice that Republicans ignoring the health insurance crisis is going to be good for midterms.
Now, military families are figuring out how they're going to cope if their paychecks don't arrive on October 15th as scheduled. House Speaker Mike Johnson has signaled Republicans will not vote on a standalone bill to pay the troops during the shutdown. Well, the IRS is making changes, and it will impact your federal taxes this year and next. The IRS rolling out higher federal tax brackets to adjust for inflation. It means the standard deduction is rising for married couples filing together or single filers. Tax experts say people will see some relief in their taxes because the deductions will lessen the impact of inflation. Well, the scariest part of Halloween this year won't be the costumes, it could be the prices. Up next, Priya Mann shows us how tariffs are affecting Halloween and some helpful hacks for trick-or-treaters. Welcome back, everybody. Let's take a live look at the unofficial Halloween destination. This is Salem, Massachusetts. With Halloween just around the corner and many getting ready to welcome trick-or-treaters, shoppers are experiencing some sticker shock. Experts say consumers are questioning whether tariffs have a role to play. As Priya Mann explains, the cost of decorations and costumes has some looking to DIY hacks.
You know, when the pumpkins are out, Halloween is right around the corner. But shoppers say what's truly frightening are the prices for costume, candy, and decorations.
What
are you seeing when you're buying candy?
Oh my God, it's like $20 for, a bag.
There's going to be less people giving out candy this year.
Shoppers say it's not the ghosts and goblins that are scary this year, but the prices they're paying for Halloween goods.
Costumes used to be affordable, but now it's kind of like you have to plan in advance in order to get costumes, especially if you have multiple children. I have 4.
Just buying Halloween decorations, I mean, $5 here, $10, they're not cheap, Even if you go to the Dollar Tree and it's still not,
Do you think at all tariffs have a role to play in things getting more expensive?
I do.
We're paying the cost for the tariffs because the tax comes back to us, the people that are buying the stuff.
Tariffs this year are on people's minds. Catherine Cullen with the National Retail Federation says they're seeing more people start Halloween shopping earlier because they're worried items will cost more, so they're spreading out their purchases.
Many of those costs haven't yet been passed on to consumers. It is impacting certain goods differently. We may be seeing it a little bit more in non-durable goods.
President Trump implemented tariffs on a variety of imported goods to encourage companies to make products in the U.S. According to the Alliance for American Manufacturing, virtually all Halloween costumes on the market are imported, which means they'll be subject to tariffs.
You could try to DIY it or plan ahead, which is what I was doing, but really, honestly, I just think that we're all going to end up eating the cost of it.
Candy and sweets prices are up from a year ago, according to the latest Consumer Price Index. Some shoppers are taking it all in stride.
Go with the flow. What else can you do? Because I'm still going to be a last minute Lucy, so.
So we'll see how much candy costs on October 30th.
Oh, God. Okay, yeah. Uh-huh. See, you're going to make me go shop early now for candy.
And no surprise here, but people are spending more on Halloween. The National Retail Federation says on average, people are spending about $114 on Halloween. That's $11 more than last year. I'm Priya Mann, Local 4.
All right, Priya, also, if you're looking for a killer costume for the kids without breaking the bank, thrifting could work wonders. Stores like Goodwill or Once Upon a Child could have costumes for under $20. Also, get creative. Sort through the clothing and turn pieces of them into your own costume. Another option is finding a local Free Cycle Facebook group and putting in a request there. If you want to shop online, we found some popular costumes like the Minions or Mario on Amazon for under $20. But just remember, filter your search results for costumes in your budget and the size, and make sure they can be delivered on time. Coming up in our next half hour, we're going to talk to a Michigan State professor who studies international trade and tariffs on what the tariffs could mean for the holiday season. Also, it's a festival dedicated to smooth jazz to end the summer. A live look over at Hart Plaza now. Just how many people tune in to the Detroit Jazz Festival when we come back. Let's take a live look at Hart Plaza this morning. We have learned more than 300,000 people flooded downtown and midtown Detroit over Labor Day weekend to enjoy free jazz from world-renowned artists. At the same time, nearly 1.5 million jazz fans from 43 countries tuned in online to catch the festival's live stream. The festival featured 50 performances across 4 different stages. The festival president says this was the most successful season in its 46-year history. Since 1980, the Detroit Jazz Festival has been the world's largest free jazz festival. If you missed it this year, just don't worry, mark your calendar for next Labor Day weekend. Hey, B.
Now, forewarned weather with Brian Sherman.
Definitely, if you're going to be at the Hudson's, lots to do if it's cold or snowy outside. And we're dealing with a cold morning here as you're waking up early this morning. Some of us for the second morning in a row, a frosty start as you're heading out the door this Friday morning. With that in mind, the National Weather Service continues our frost advisory for our northern and western tier of communities in light blue. So this does not include Monroe and Wayne counties, as our temperatures are warm enough overnight last night and early this morning that we're not dealing with any frost as you're heading out the door. Tower cam over downtown Detroit and Comerica Park, a very tranquil start early this morning. 44 degrees here in downtown Detroit, but outside the metro, a lot of 30s showing up as you're heading out the door this morning. 34 in Port Huron, 37 Sandusky, 38 in Pontiac, 31 this morning over in Ann Arbor, and 37 down in Monroe. So do warm up the car, grab the jacket. You are going to need a few extra minutes as you head out the door early this morning. High pressure moving off to the east, controlling our forecast for today, but I'm watching a cold front out over the Midwest from Wisconsin back down into northwestern Illinois, Iowa, and northern Missouri. That's going to move into our region tomorrow in tandem with a developing upper level low pressure system that will bring us the chance of rain showers starting late tonight and into the start of the weekend. Clouds and radar forecast agrees, keeping us dry into the afternoon, but after 8 to 9 o'clock tonight, we start to bring in some of those scattered showers. The data not in 100% agreement on this yet, just because that area of low pressure hasn't developed. Nevertheless, cloud cover increases for the start of the weekend on Saturday. We will keep the option open for some showers from time to time, but I do think this moves off to the east and we dry things out late Saturday night and into the end of the weekend on Sunday. Then I'm watching a nor'easter developing, moving across Florida by the time we get to Saturday, and then off the coast of the Carolinas late Saturday and into Sunday with the wind gusts here in red. We're talking 40 to 50, possibly 60 miles an hour, moving up toward Washington, D.C., New York City, and Boston by early next week. So if you're going to be traveling to the eastern seaboard, plan ahead, as this is going to be a nasty little weather maker heading into early next week. Right around 40 by 8 o'clock this morning, 50s by lunchtime, 60s this afternoon. Those rain showers move in late tonight and stick around for the start of the weekend before sunshine moves in and we warm things up into the upper 60s by the end of the weekend on Sunday. 70s move in for Monday and Tuesday, but then I've got another cool down on the way. We're into the low 60s with a little bit of sunshine by the time we get to next Thursday.
Brian, thank you, sir. You can help us go for it and give kids the gift of music. We're teaming up with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra and Detroit Harmony, collecting new and like new musical instruments, just no pianos. You can drop them off at the Detroit Harmony building on Wednesday, October 15th from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m. That's off Cass Avenue near Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Just scan the QR code there on your screen. You can also make a donation for music lessons. Thank you so much for helping us go for it. Huge weekend of sports here at Local 4. The Local 4 game of the week takes us way out to the west side of Michigan. It's going to be worth it, though. The Falcons of East Kentwood taking on the Hudsonville Eagles. That's going to be at 7 o'clock tonight on Local 4 Plus and clickondetroit.com. That game brought to you by State Champs Game Time Live and presented by Hungry Howie's. Also, Michigan fans, Saturday's big game in Los Angeles is going to be right here on Local 4. Watch the news at 6 o'clock tomorrow. Then our pregame show is at 6:30. We're going to get you ready for Michigan to take on the USC in the Coliseum. NBC game coverage begins at 7, and stay tuned for Local 4 News at 11 o'clock. And then on Sunday, the Lions take the field in Kansas City. You're going to be watching them again right here on Local 4. Hobie is going to be in Kansas City for that game. You can catch Local 4 News at 6. Pre-game show is after that. Then the game coverage begins at 7. Kickoff is at 8:20. And again, the 11 o'clock news is right after the game. Well, much more ahead coming up in the next hour of news. The investigators at Local 4 are exposing new details on Michigan's mental health hospitals. And what we have found has a state lawmaker requesting an investigation into how they are run. Then we heard earlier how tariffs are impacting Halloween, but what about the rest of the holidays? If you're budgeting for Christmas, you're going to want to hear what an expert has to say. And then one of the most popular sporting and entertainment events for kids and director Nick is coming to Comerica Park. Savannah Banana Baseball. More news, more weather, more Local 4 Live, all coming up next.
From downtown Detroit, Local 4 Live starts right now.
Hey everybody, happy Friday. Welcome back to Local 4 Live. I'm Nick Monticelli. A lot of conversations happening here this morning, including tariffs and the holidays. We know prices have gone up on some things, but should you be budgeting more for Halloween, Christmas, Hanukkah, even more? You're going to want to hear what an expert has to say about it. And then the investigators here at Local 4 are exposing the conditions inside the state's mental health hospitals. Karen Drew is going to talk about what she has uncovered. And the Tigers playing in a do-or-die Game 5 against the Mariners tonight. But that's not why we're showing you Comerica Park at the bottom of the... Oh, it's over there. That screen. There it is. That way. We're going to tell you the incredibly popular sporting and entertainment event that is coming to Comerica Park next year. Topping our headlines this morning, the ceasefire between Hamas and Israel went into effect about 4 hours ago. As celebrations grow in the Middle East, President Trump is planning to travel to that area for the peace deal signing and the long-awaited release of the remaining Hamas-held hostages. As Alice Parr explains, the news brings rare moments of bipartisanship to Capitol Hill.
Hi there. We're tracking major developments in the Middle East with the ceasefire now in effect. There are celebrations across Gaza and Israel, though much remains uncertain. Now, word that the U.S. military is planning to help support stabilizing Gaza. Smoke still rising over Gaza early this morning in the final hours before a ceasefire takes hold. Palestinians and Israelis already celebrating after the Israeli government approved the first phase of a peace deal Hamas already agreed to and President Trump advanced.
I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace.
The president planning to travel to Egypt this weekend for a formal signing and the return of the remaining hostages, 20 believed to still be alive after 2 years in Hamas captivity.
They should be released on Monday or Tuesday. Getting them is a complicated process.
And there are even more complicated steps ahead, including a requirement for Hamas to disarm and leave power, still an open question.
They got to be written out of the future of Palestine. Just keep our fingers crossed.
Cautious optimism on Capitol Hill, where lawmakers in both parties gave credit to President Trump.
What we need is bipartisan support for the peace process, which will be fraught with obstacles, make no mistake.
The biggest challenge, how to bring Gaza back from the ruins and secure a peaceful future. President Trump adamant no one will be forced to leave and that neighboring nations will help rebuild.
We're going to create something where people can live. You can't live right now in Gaza.
The U.S. military preparing options to send as many as 200 troops to Israel to ensure stability and the flow of aid into Gaza, according to 2 U.S. officials familiar with the planning, who noted there will be no American boots on the ground in Gaza. As for how this deal came together, Secretary of State Marco Rubio pointed to some key turning points, including President Trump securing the backing of leaders of Muslim-majority nations at the UN General Assembly last month, getting Israel's prime minister to sign on in a White House visit, and delivering a final ultimatum to Hamas. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Alice, thank you. Here at home, Gompers Elementary Middle School in Detroit is closed for a second day after a student was violently stabbed. We're told a mom snuck a knife into a school, gave it to her child, and that child then stabbed the other student. Mom and the child are in custody. Police and other families are trying to figure out why the security guard didn't search the mother after the knife set off the metal detector.
Why did that woman get through the metal detectors with a knife? What if it would have been a gun? That situation could have got really ugly, really quick, and it's the school's fault.
Emotional support sessions are available for students. Meanwhile, we have not heard back from the district for a comment. Well, Melvindale is still under a boil water advisory, but also, before we get there, a Detroit assistant principal at Edward Ellington Conservatory of Music and Art at Beckham Academy. He's in jail. He's accused of sexually assaulting a student. 54-year-old Jerome Younger was arraigned on Thursday and is facing first and second-degree sexual conduct charges. The alleged assaults occurred off school grounds at Younger's home. A spokesperson with the Detroit Public Schools Community District confirmed Younger has been placed on leave and is no longer allowed on school property while an internal investigation is ongoing. A drunk driver who caused a deadly wrong-way crash on 696 2 years ago will likely spend the rest of his life in prison. Stefano Raymond, neighbors, was found guilty in August of second-degree murder and 4 other felonies. Now take a look here. This was the scene of the crash from May of 2023 on 696 near Gratiot. A 62-year-old man from Harper Woods was killed. Neighbors was sentenced to between 30 and 50 years in jail. Okay, now to that Melvindale story. Still under a boil water advisory, it was issued Wednesday after a sudden water shutoff led to a drop in water pressure. Shante Passmore shows us when things could get back up and normal and what's being done in the meantime.
Yeah, yesterday we saw car after car lining up to get bottled water from the city and from Gliwa, and it appears there'll be another round of water distribution for people looking for more water here later this morning. This is also the same spot where you can bring bags that are capable of holding a gallon of water. Right now, thousands of people still can't get safe water from their taps. The source of this problem, a valve issue with the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department, which then caused the water to shut shutoff in Melvindale. Residents are being told not to drink tap water without boiling it first, to use for such things as drinking, brushing teeth, washing dishes, and preparing food. Still, families say there's concern even with the boil water advisory. And the city says it is actively working to fully restore water pressure while also flushing out the water system and collecting bacterial samples. The goal for people to be able to use their water safely before the weekend starts. We're in Melvindale. I'm Shantae Passmore, Local 4.
Shantae, thank you much. We are well into the season of pumpkin spice, and Americans are topping off their morning brew with that fall flavor, but could it be costing you more? A study from Empower Financial Wellness site shows 44% of people say tariffs and inflation are making pumpkin spiced products more expensive. And 39% admit to paying a pumpkin spice tax. Despite the higher prices, more than half of Americans, especially younger generations, are still excited to buy pumpkin spice foods and drinks every fall. Millennials spend the most, about $64 a month, 5 times than baby boomers. They just don't like pumpkin spice. But it's not just the pumpkin spice. Hershey said it will not raise Halloween candy prices this year, but there are other candy companies here in the U.S. and prices are rising beyond Halloween. The American Christmas Tree Association says artificial tree prices could be 10 to 20% higher than last year. And let's not forget the gifts. Mattel has already warned prices could go up in price because of the tariffs. Now, a Michigan State professor who studies international trade and tariffs agrees, saying we should expect price increases, but maybe not as much as we originally thought. However, he is cautioning there will be fewer items on the shelves this holiday season. Here's that conversation. Jason Miller with Michigan State University. Let's kind of talk about this holiday trickle-down effect that we probably should start talking about, even though I don't want to start shopping already. It sounds like we could be seeing the impacts of tariffs on Halloween, on decorations, on costumes, even as far as Christmas.
No, we would expect a little bit of impact, though, in general, because of the pause that was put in place with the worst of the tariffs with China. Consumers shouldn't expect to see undue price increases this year. A lot of these items also sell for a very high margin, and because of that, the importers can't absorb some of that. We don't yet have the trade data to get a sense whether the exporters may have lowered unit prices a little bit as well to essentially what we say absorb tariff by lowering costs. So I wouldn't expect undue increase in inflation. But on the other hand, for folks who are looking and maybe trying to buy some furniture and things like that, if you look last year, we were actually in a deflationary environment where furniture prices were coming down. They are now ticking back up a little bit. So in a lot of ways, the shock more than anything is many goods that had gotten more expensive due to all the COVID-related supply chain disruptions in 21 and 22, they were actually deflating as we were moving essentially past 2022. That deflation is no longer there for a lot of household items and things like that, and we're back to a little bit of inflation again.
The roller coaster continues, is what you're saying then?
Yeah, there's been a very sharp sort of snap change in the direction of prices. And so for a lot of those things like furniture, you should expect prices to be a little bit higher right now. We're not really sure, again, as there's discussion about further tariffs on goods like that. But certainly the deflationary sort of lowering of prices that we were seeing actually last year for some of these categories, that has dissipated.
Heard from some toy makers in terms of, let's say, Christmas presents that we might see an increase. What are your thoughts on where that could, what that could look like come Christmas time, the other holidays?
Yeah, so we certainly would expect that. So most toys in the U.S. That we buy are sourced from overseas, especially China and Vietnam. China being by far the largest provider. We would expect, let's say, a couple percent higher. It's difficult to fully understand toy prices because the consumer price index for toys also includes video game consoles. And since those tend to essentially have deflation in the data because their quality gets better over time, more so than what their cost increases, it sort of throws us for a loop in trying to measure that specific piece. But what I would say is, again, you can expect price to be up a little bit, but it's not going to be an undue amount. Where we're really seeing more evidence of tariffs having a impact on prices is more in what we would call producer goods, so things that other manufacturers are buying. And so those are going to take a long time to work their way to the consumer, at least 6 to 9 months.
You're talking about materials, basically.
Yes, so exactly. So raw materials are becoming more expensive, and essentially as a manufacturer now you have two choices: either accept lower margins or slowly raise your prices. The other thing that has kept tariffs from having the broader, impact on pricing has been demand has been relatively weak in 2025. If the Fed starts cutting interest rates, there's an open question to the extent that importers gain confidence that they can actually pass more of those tariff costs on to consumers.
At the time of this interview, the tariffs on India currently at 50%. What are your thoughts on what impact that might have, if any, on consumers?
So where that really affects U.S. consumers is going to be jewelry. Tremendous amount of imported jewelry comes from India, gemstones, things like that. Linens and things of that sort we import a lot of from India, and actually a lot of seafood as well. So shrimp, crustaceans, and things like that. A lot of the farm-raised products there come from India. So we are going to expect to see price increases there. To the extent, though, it is somewhat unknown, it is important for folks to understand that things like iPhones from India are not included in these 50% tariffs.
You had talked about how demand currently is down. Do we have an idea why that is? Is there some consumer hesitation because they're fearing that things are going to cost more? Or is there a different factor here?
So just in general, we've seen credit card debt and delinquency levels. Certainly the delinquency data has continued to rise. Now it seems to be starting to level off, but we're at, the last few years have been quite stressful. And so the consumer just seems to be cautious. Housing activity especially is very stagnant right now. New housing starts have been relatively weak in 2025. And also existing single family home sales are weak. And that tends to drive a tremendous amount of goods buying because people buy new furniture. They replace a lot of things when they're moving. And so that combination of the consumer being stressed as well as stagnant housing has been sort of the big contributions to slower demand on, let's call it the, consumer durable side, which is a lot of what we do import from overseas.
It's an interesting conversation then that there was an assumption that there would be higher costs because of higher tariffs, but the demand is lower, which keeps costs relatively lower than we expected right now, which then is actually a byproduct of the economy. So it seems like we're in a circle here.
We are, and this is why the Fed is in such a challenging position, is there's an open debate about the extent that if you lower interest rates, you give importers more confidence that they can now pass these tariff costs on to buyers, and therefore you may lower interest rates, you spur demand, and then you start to cause more inflation, which then may make the Fed have to go back in, let's say, 6 months and raise rates, which is exactly what they don't want to do.
It must be frustrating for somebody in your position to try to analyze this when everything is changing, not day by day, but minute by minute now.
So you become very adaptable, and I think that's why there's so much widespread disagreement about what the effects are. It's not just politics, but it's just different underlying assumptions we all have about the behavior of inflation and inflation data.
So what's your advice to consumers then who are looking at the next couple of months and trying to budget out what they're going to be spending on Halloween, Christmas, the other holidays, and trying to get an idea of what their checkbook should look like?
What I would say is expect things to be a little bit higher than last year, but don't panic. It's not like you're going to see a 15% increase in the price of toys or things like that. Do recognize you may not get the variety of goods you want, though, because importers are going to be very selective. So where you're going to see it more is going to be on a variety pinch as opposed to a pocketbook pinch.
Does that mean that we're probably going to have some kind of craze that whatever toy is the big one, we might have less of?
Well, that's one that almost always tends to be, whatever toy is super popular, there's always shortages on that because nobody can predict it. But it's, you may not have quite the selection that you normally would because importers are only bringing in their best sellers right now. They're the goods where, hey, maybe I bring that in. If it was no tariffs, I'm now not bringing that product in.
Okay, Jason Miller, Michigan State, thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
All right, a change coming to Detroit skyline this morning. We're going to show you what was just added to one of the city's tallest buildings. And the Tigers still in it now. It's all coming down to a win or go home Game 5 in the Emerald City. A live look at T-Mobile Park over in Seattle. How the team is feeling about Game 5 when we come back. Welcome back. A new site in downtown Detroit this morning. Sky4 caption crews putting the GM logo on the Hudson's building. You're used to seeing that logo, of course, on the RenCen, but GM is moving its headquarters to the Hudson's building. That portion of the building is expected to open next year. We did get a tour of the office spaces this week, and you can watch that on our website over at clickondetroit.com, which you can see the cranes doing the work and putting that big logo. It's kind of hard to see it. There it is. There it is. Right on the side of the building there. Speaking of buildings, there's a live look at T-Mobile Park in the Emerald City. The Tigers heading back to Seattle for this decisive Game 5 against the Mariners. First pitch is at 8:08. All eyes will be on the pitchers. This will be the Tigers' ace Tarik Skubal on the mound going against the Mariners' George Kirby. The Mariners have had Skubal's numbers so far this season, so Kirby is also a solid pitcher. It could turn into a real duel on the mound. It was a team effort getting the series back to Seattle. That's what it's going to take to keep their postseason run going.
We have to figure out for the next game, doing the same team, stay together like we do today, and be fun. I mean, postseason is really special.
When everything clicks together, the pitching and the hitting and everything we do as a team, we can be really dangerous, and everybody got pretty good talent here.
Now, if the Tigers win tonight's Game 5, they're going to have a quick turnaround for the ALCS. That game against the Blue Jays over in Toronto for whoever wins Game 5 tonight. Also, the Red Wings starting their centennial season with an original 6 matchup against Montreal. Captain Dylan Larkin giving the crowd something to cheer about by scoring the first goal of the season 4 minutes in. However, that mood would take a sour turn. The Canadians scoring 5 straight goals, 3 in the first and 2 in the second, and then another win, 5-1. Another big test for the Wings as they host Toronto tomorrow. Well, you might go bananas when you hear who's coming to Comerica Park, the big party coming to the field, and how you can join in. All righty, friends. Now to our top story over on clickondetroit.com. The Banana Ball League is coming to Detroit and Comerica Park. Two traveling teams will face off. You can see the Firefighters take on the Party Animals on September 18th and 19th of 2026. Banana Ball has become one of the most popular live sports in the country. It's kind of like Harlem Globetrotters, but with baseball. Because of the league's success, they are adding more teams starting next year. To have a shot at tickets, you have to join the ticket lottery, which closes on Halloween, October 31st. We posted that link over on our website at clickondetroit.com. All right, back closer to home, a beautiful shot over downtown Detroit right now, thanks to our friends over in Windsor. A little rain in the forecast for tonight. Hey, B.
Now, forewarned weather with Brian Sherman.
Definitely, if you're going to be at the Hudson's, lots to do if it's cold or snowy outside. And we're dealing with a cold morning here as you're waking up early this morning. Some of us for the second morning in a row, a frosty start as you're heading out the door this Friday morning. With that in mind, the National Weather Service continues our frost advisory for our northern and western tier of communities in light blue. So this does not include Monroe and Wayne counties, as our temperatures are warm enough overnight last night and early this morning that we're not dealing with any frost as you're heading out the door. Tower cam over downtown Detroit and Comerica Park, a very tranquil start early this morning. 44 degrees here in downtown Detroit, but outside the metro, a lot of 30s showing up as you're heading out the door this morning. 34 in Port Huron, 37 Sandusky, 38 in Pontiac, 31 this morning over in Ann Arbor, and 37 down in Monroe. So do warm up the car, grab the jacket. You are going to need a few extra minutes as you head out the door early this morning. High pressure moving off to the east, controlling our forecast for today, but I'm watching a cold front out over the Midwest from Wisconsin back down into northwestern Illinois, Iowa, and northern Missouri. That's going to move into our region tomorrow in tandem with a developing upper level low pressure system that will bring us the chance of rain showers starting late tonight and into the start of the weekend. Clouds and radar forecast degrees, keeping us dry into the afternoon, but after 8 to 9 o'clock tonight, we start to bring in some of those scattered showers. The data not in 100% agreement on this yet, just because that area of low pressure hasn't developed. Nevertheless, cloud cover increases for the start of the weekend on Saturday. We will keep the option open for some showers from time to time, but I do think this moves off to the east and we dry things out late Saturday night and into the end of the weekend on Sunday. Then I'm watching a nor'easter developing, moving across Florida by the time we get to Saturday, and then off the coast of the Carolinas late Saturday and into Sunday with the wind gusts here in red. We're talking 40 to 50, possibly 60 miles an hour, moving up toward Washington, D.C., New York City, and Boston by early next week. So if you're going to be traveling to the eastern seaboard, plan ahead, as this is going to be a nasty little weather maker heading into early next week. Right around 40 by 8 o'clock this morning, 50s by lunchtime, 60s this afternoon. Those rain showers move in late tonight and stick around for the start of the weekend before sunshine moves in and we warm things up into the upper 60s by the end of the weekend on Sunday. 70s move in for Monday and Tuesday, but then I've got another cool down on the way. We're into the low 60s with a little bit of sunshine by the time we get to next Thursday.
All right, Brian, thank you. It appears the federal government is no closer to opening up again, and it's leaving military families worried about when they'll see their next paycheck. Over on Capitol Hill, the government has been shut down for more than a week and Congress still appears deadlocked. Republicans are still pushing for essentially an extension of current funding levels through mid-November. Democrats focusing on health care, calling for enhanced Obamacare subsidies to be included. Republicans needed 60 votes to advance their stopgap funding bill yesterday. They failed in a 54-45 vote. Meanwhile, military families are figuring out how they're going to cope if their paychecks don't arrive on Wednesday as scheduled. New York Attorney General Letitia James, who brought civil charges against the then former President Donald Trump, is indicted by a federal grand jury. The president has been pushing for charges against her for a while now. Prosecutors allege she got favorable mortgage terms by calling her home a secondary residence. This is how James responded to that indictment.
These charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost. The president's actions are a grave violation of our constitutional order and have drawn sharp criticism from members of both parties.
To say a then DOJ prosecutor who investigated a similar matter found insufficient evidence to pursue a case. He's out of a job after resisting Trump's pressure to charge James. The indictment comes 2 weeks after ex-FBI Director James Comey was indicted on 2 charges stemming from congressional testimony he gave in 2020. Comey pleaded not guilty. Well, the chaplain of the Loyola men's basketball team and March Madness staple Sister Jean Dolores Schmidt has died. She stepped down from her role with the university in August because of health issues, though the school said she remained as an advisor in the final months of her life. Sister Jean became a beloved viral celebrity during the school's fairy tale run into the 2018 NCAA tournament. Her likeness appeared on everything from socks to a Lego statue in Loyola's art museum to a bobblehead. Sister Jean Dolores Schmidt was 106 years old. Well, coming up next, the investigators at Local 4 are getting answers for a mother who wants to know what happened to her daughter inside a Michigan mental health facility. Karen Drew is uncovering those conditions inside, coming up next.
From downtown Detroit, Local 4 Live starts right now.
Well, welcome back to Local 4 Live, everybody. I'm Nick Monticelli, and thank you for watching. We're going to start this half hour with a Local 4 investigation. It was just last week the Office of the Auditor General released a scathing audit into how the state's mental health hospitals were run. The audit exposed the Office of Recipient Rights that was supposed to oversee the center wasn't doing its job, and in turn, patients and their families were being ignored. Investigator Karen Drew is here with me now, and this investigation not only critical for the families, but also for the state to try to figure out what is happening, and this has to stop.
This has been such a mess for years, Nick. I mean, we're trying to like peel that onion and try to figure out what's going on.
And every layer there's something worse.
Every layer, it's horrible. Our investigative team went through 3 years of reports of abuse and neglect, and we're hearing firsthand this morning from a local mom, as well as experts revealing how bad it really is.
This is Natalie Anwar, a mom of 2 autistic boys.
You mind if I come in and get your stuff for you?
Her children have spent hundreds of days in the state healthcare system over multiple visits.
We got company.
She's like many parents, making complaints about her child's treatment. In one case, her concern was the fungal growth on her child's head. She sent in pics She emailed, complaining about her son Jaden getting an infection on his head and no one noticing. Many times she turned to the Office of Recipient Rights, the agency overseeing the state's mental health hospitals. In one example,
the complaint that I filed in June doesn't even get addressed until November, so it's well after the time frame that they were supposed to comply. It fell through the cracks. Then I get the 30, 60, and 90-day reports in the same week.
So do they ever answer your complaint?
Yes, and then I get the...
And what do they say?
There's no preponderance of evidence that any abuse or neglect has taken place.
So then what's next?
Well, and like if you have the time and energy, then you would file an appeal. But what parent with a severely disabled child with special needs has that kind of time?
This mom is not alone. The investigators dug through 3 years of documents and data from October 2021 to September of 2024. During that 3-year period, we uncovered 508 complaints filed at Hawthorne, 31 cases substantiated. During those 3 years, we found 93 abuse complaints, 14 substantiated, and 18 complaints of neglect, 5 substantiated. But those who know the system say the complaints are not substantiated because of poor documentation.
It just seems like we have a problem in our state.
As we've talked many times, the fox guarding the hen house is what we're going to end up having. So if something happens at, say, Walter Reuther or Kalamazoo Psychiatric Hospital, that rights officer is charged with investigating that. But then, you know, that report is going to go to the state rights office.
So in a sense, they're investigating themselves.
Well, that's my point.
Active shooter with AR-15.
Remember, this is the same place that held that unannounced active shooter drill, terrifying patients and staff.
Hey, I'm sorry, that's really up.
The building closed down, the young patients moved, and soon after, this attack of a child on another child in front of staff occurred. After digging through records, the investigators discovered there were 7 suspensions at Hawthorne during that 3-year period. 18 employees left the agency, and the investigation into them was substantiated. 6 employees were terminated. 8 had written reprimands.
Retaliation is a real phenomenon. People are worried about that.
The video was not from the day that I asked for.
Natalie says it was useless to stand up against the state. Her advice?
Document like their life depends on it, because it does.
So we did reach out to MDHHS about our investigation, and while we were waiting for a response, the state told us there was a discrepancy in the data. It had been posted for years and years and years, but the day before we're going to air, the day before we're about to share it on our website, the state then removed that data from the state website. The investigators asked, what was the discrepancy? How did it happen? Who was overseeing? I actually just got a text message that we just got an email in saying that they're working on this issue right now. So they're going to update that, but interesting. Meantime, Senator Michael Weber, he was the first one who asked for that state audit. Well, 2 days ago, he requested legislative hearings to investigate how MDHHS is being run. So I caught up with him a little bit earlier to talk about all of this coming to light.
Well, I think we learned what I think our families and our patients have known now for a long time, that this is a screwed up system, a screwed up process. The complaints are not getting answered in a timely fashion or not at all. The video and audio footage conveniently is absent during some of the most critical times. And overall, the leadership, they keep looking towards that there's going to be a new building, but it's really the people and the leadership within that building. Whether you move to a new building, an old building, whatever, you still have the same problems.
You mentioned video and audio, and that caught my attention. So we'd been doing this story, and you went to the leader of MDHHS and say, hey, you know, what's going on with these video cameras? And when we started asking, they said, they're fine, they're working. Or if they're broken, we fix them. But this audit said completely the opposite.
Yeah, over 40% of the time. And when you're trying to track down these complaints, and then you go to that time frame and you can't see what happened. I know, you and others have covered some of these where whistleblowers have gotten footage out that has been really damning in terms of, potential lawsuits and that kind of thing. But it paints a picture of just a leadership that is really trying to cover up you know, what's going on there. And it's stuff that our parents group, our former patients that have talked to us at hearings and this and that, they've been telling us, and I think, frankly, they feel vindicated with
But all this information comes out and says we file complaints and they're not responded to.
They didn't think anybody was listening to them.
Right.
I'm listening to them. There's other legislators, you know, in the House and Senate listening to them.
But how do we stop this then? What's next?
Well, we're going to follow the Auditor General report and talk with them about legislation that's needed. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that they talked about is already in law. It's already in statute. It's already part of the policy.
Because they did say that at one time they're supposed to respond within 24 hours
Yeah.
according to their own training.
Yeah.
But sometimes months can happen.
Yeah.
So you need oversight.
You need oversight, and I've been calling for oversight now for over 2 years. And I know our House Oversight Committee will definitely do hearings on this. I'm also going to push our Senate Oversight to do hearings. I think why oversight is so critical is these departments need to know, the legislature who is working on behalf of the people, that this is at the forefront of what they're doing. They're trying to get answers for their residents, and that's what I've been trying to do for 2 years.
If you're a taxpayer, a cow's in the system, and you're complaining, somebody needs to respond. And
Yes.
Is this oversight fines? I mean, do we need a change in leadership?
Well, we're going to get a change in leadership there, one way or the other, with the new governor coming in 27. But I think, in the time being, we definitely need that leadership to understand what these problems are and try to work to correct them the best they can. I will say in the audit that the leadership agreed or partially agreed with many of the recommendations, many of the charges in there. But now the work begins. How do we fix this, and how do we fix it, you know, in the right way? And that's where oversight plays a major role.
A little bit down there, of course. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, so if you want to hear more of our investigation, you can head to clickondetroit.com. We've got all of the stories that we've done. You can scan the QR code on your screen, and you can find also some of those complaints to the Office of Recipient Rights in terms of how those cases were handled. We spent a lot of weeks, Nick, putting all of this together because this is information that's not readily available. But
And then when it is, it goes away.
well, yeah.
Right.
So I don't understand. We did get that message, and they said, okay, there was a data problem. We've clarified it, but that just leads me to wonder, well, how could that be posted wrong for years, and
Right.
now you're correcting it?
And now you're correcting it.
And you got to feel like Natalie, this mom, like, you know, you're dealing with your kids. You want to get your kid healthy and happy and safe. You're not busy trying to document an email. You expect the state to be doing that, and you expect if you file a complaint, it should be addressed in a timely manner.
What's so troubling to me is that, and the senator talked about it there, is that leadership at times was trying to cover things up, which is not only troubling, but it's disheartening because for a family or a mother who is already struggling with a special needs child, you would think that somebody in a position like that was there to help you and guide you through the process and figure out what's best for your child. And they're getting the exact opposite of that. They're getting people who are giving them the runaround and covering things up.
And you judge a society in terms of how sometimes you treat the weakest.
Right.
And we've got children who need help, and it is our job to provide that help and guidance. And, you know, everyone should care about this. You never know when your child may need, it doesn't have to be a special needs. It can just be a child that is depressed and needs some mental help.
Just needs somebody to talk to.
And you send your child there for whether it is just a week or 7 days, and all of a sudden, all of this is going on. So I say we're going to stay on top of it, and we have. We've stayed on top of it for years. You know, they are making changes. They are going to get a new building, but like the senator says, a new building doesn't solve it.
Doesn't solve
We need
those
some
are systematic
changes
issues,
in
right?
leadership.
Yeah.
So
there was another comment in there about the fox guarding the hen house, which is the perfect way to describe it, right? And again, the senator talked about oversight, but has there been any conversations about maybe an independent, maybe a third-party investigation?
Well, there is not a third party, but there is this Office of Recipient Rights, and there's this like board, and it's all state workers. So he's trying to get some of the people on this board to be outside. So at least we can get some outside influence. So when an investigation is done, it's not just based on state employees. Because if I'm investigating my boss, I don't know if I'm going to really say something.
But you know, things that we have seen in past tragedies, like Oxford, for instance, when they bring in completely removed investigators, that's when we start to get some real answers.
That's a valid point. I mean, it's hard. I mean, they've had a fight just to get the audit done.
Right.
I mean, he asked for the audit in July of 23. We just got it now. It took 2 years.
2.5 years.
I
right.
mean,
yeah.
come on.
And when there are some 24-hour and 30-day rules in place.
Right. So.
Okay, stay on it. I know you will.
I will.
Thanks, Karen. Well, a passion for science technology is about to take flight for some young minds. We're going to show you the competition inspiring young girls to learn and explore when we come back after the break. Welcome back, everybody. The Women of Aerospace Industry Association of Michigan are on a mission to get more kids excited about science technology. They're doing it through something called the Michigan Youth Future Flight Challenge. It is a 4-week competition where students in grades 4 through 8 create sustainable flight solutions to real-world problems. This is a hands-on, creative, collaborative opportunity, building confidence and probably interest in some STEM opportunities. Joining us this morning is Lisa Barron to talk about why the program is such a cool opportunity for young kids. First of all, it used to be a program that was geared towards girls because you were trying to get girls interested. Now you said, all the kids.
Oh yeah, we need all the kids, as many as we can, involved in the aerospace industry. You know, it's just exploding right now.
Right.
Airbus and Boeing has 20 to 30-year backlog alone for commercial aircraft. So, and in Michigan, it's a growing industry because, you know, Michigan's aerospace industry saved the world in World War II, right? And it's been growing ever since.
Right.
And our company, Barron Industries, is an example of that. It was started, a family-run company started 100 years ago in Detroit, serving mostly the automotive industry. But, and it was part of building the bombers in World War II and then continued to grow in aerospace. And now we're heavily, 100 years later, heavily involved in the aerospace industry, making parts for everything from satellites to rockets to drones and, you know,
what a cool field to be in right now. It must be so incredibly fun. Okay, so let's talk about the challenge here. This is going to sound crass, but I don't understand it. So what are you asking the kids to do?
Very good. Yeah, it's, well, and these are elementary school students in grades 4 through 8. And what they're going to do is work in teams of 2 to 6, and they're going to design an aerospace solution. So a solution that flies.
Okay. So
And
do you give them a problem and they have to come up with a
We
solution?
give them 3 challenge statements, 3 that they can choose from.
Okay.
They're not specific, but they involve, various problems that we're going to have either on Earth or in space, and they have to come up with a solution. And we want to engage students not only interested in STEM, but also interested in other things like art.
Sure.
We give them a rubric, which gives them the steps of what they have to do and how they get points in the competition.
Now, the competition starts next week, right?
The competition starts tomorrow.
Oh, it's tomorrow.
Kickoff is tomorrow.
Okay, but it's
they can
virtual,
still-
like it's all over the
virtual,
States.
So they can still sign up,
Okay.
and they should, because there's great prizes,
It's-
up to $1,000.
Right.
They can use that either in Barnes & Noble certificates or even to attend STEM camps.
Oh, how fun
of
would
their,
that be?
Of their choice.
Okay, so give me some examples of solutions that students in the past have come up with.
Oh, okay. Last year, the winner, the Flying Five, designed an echo drone. And what it did was it scanned forests for fires and then alerted the fire stations if there was any kind of problem.
Do these actually work?
Well, they're prototypes.
They're prototypes.
They're
okay.
prototypes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so-
they're on a path to being something, not just an
Yeah,
idea.
well, they have to, part of this is, yes, they're engaged in STEM activities by designing it and coming up with the science of solving the problem, but they also have to develop a business plan.
right.
They have to come up with financing and
have to market it.
Market it.
Yeah,
Some of
right.
the students make commercials.
Oh.
So it involves all subjects.
So, okay, so if there's a student or even a teacher that says this is a great idea or I want to get involved, what's the best way? How do they do it?
So I see you have our flyer up.
We sure do.
And there is a code there that they can scan and you can sign up. You can also go to aiamnow.com.
Okay.
So this, like you said, Nick, this is sponsored by the Women of the Aerospace Industry Association of Michigan, or WAM.
Okay.
And that is, and our mission is to obviously advocate for aerospace education and career pathways.
Right.
But the Aerospace Industry Association of Michigan, we're part of Aerospace Industry Association of Michigan, and that is a member-supported group to support the aerospace industry, and it does that by basically developing the talent pipeline in Michigan, which we need, and also by supporting aerospace companies or companies that want to get into aerospace.
Right. So it's kind of a selfish need here because you're also kind of grooming some young talent for yourselves eventually.
Well, yeah, the students in middle school, when you think of it, they're our workforce in 10 years.
Right. Oh my gosh.
There's 900 companies in Michigan alone connected to the global aerospace industry, employing 40,000 people.
We are almost out of time, but I wanted to ask you one more thing because one of the key parts of this is that they get mentors. They get to work with some actual people in the industry, which is huge.
That is key, yes. They'll be assigned mentors who they have to contact. They'll get points for contacting them, and it's very professional. And the mentors can even bring them into their workplace, into manufacturing facilities, and, let them see firsthand how the stuff is made that go into aircraft or other aerospace.
What a great opportunity and a great challenge. And you can win $1,000 at Barnes & Noble. So it's awesome. Lisa, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for coming in. Have a great weekend, all right? Okay, when we come back, unfortunately, a chance of rain for your weekend. Brian is next to time out exactly when it may fall to help you plan your Saturday and your Sunday if you're going to a game, going down to Notre Dame, Michigan State, so many things to do. We'll be right back.
Now, forewarned weather with Brian Sherman.
Definitely, if you're going to be at the Hudson's, lots to do if it's cold or snowy outside. And we're dealing with a cold morning here as you're waking up early this morning. Some of us for the second morning in a row, a frosty start as you're heading out the door this Friday morning. With that in mind, the National Weather Service continues our frost advisory for our northern and western tier of communities in light blue. So this does not include Monroe and Wayne counties, as our temperatures are warm enough overnight last night and early this morning that we're not dealing with any frost as you're heading out the door. Tower cam over downtown Detroit and Comerica Park, a very tranquil start early this morning. 44 degrees here in downtown Detroit, but outside the metro, a lot of 30s showing up as you're heading out the door this morning. 34 in Port Huron, 37 Sandusky, 38 in Pontiac, 31 this morning over in Ann Arbor, and 37 down in Monroe. So do warm up the car, grab the jacket. You are going to need a few extra minutes as you head out the door early this morning. High pressure moving off to the east, controlling our forecast for today, but I'm watching a cold front out over the Midwest from Wisconsin back down into northwestern Illinois, Iowa, and northern Missouri. That's going to move into our region tomorrow in tandem with a developing upper level low pressure system that will bring us the chance of rain showers starting late tonight and into the start of the weekend. Clouds and radar forecast degrees, keeping us dry into the afternoon, but after 8 to 9 o'clock tonight, we start to bring in some of those scattered showers. The data not in 100% agreement on this yet, just because that area of low pressure hasn't developed. Nevertheless, cloud cover increases for the start of the weekend on Saturday. We will keep the option open for some showers from time to time, but I do think this moves off to the east and we dry things out late Saturday night and into the end of the weekend on Sunday. Then I'm watching a nor'easter developing, moving across Florida by the time we get to Saturday, and then off the coast of the Carolinas late Saturday and into Sunday with the wind gusts here in red. We're talking 40 to 50, possibly 60 miles an hour, moving up toward Washington, D.C., New York City, and Boston by early next week. So if you're going to be traveling to the eastern seaboard, plan ahead, as this is going to be a nasty little weather maker heading into early next week. Right around 40 by 8 o'clock this morning, 50s by lunchtime, 60s this afternoon. Those rain showers move in late tonight and stick around for the start of the weekend before sunshine moves in and we warm things up into the upper 60s by the end of the weekend on Sunday. 70s move in for Monday and Tuesday, but then I've got another cool down on the way. We're into the low 60s with a little bit of sunshine by the time we get to next Thursday.
All right, B, thank you, sir. Stay with us. The one, the only Tati from Live at the D is going to tell us what's coming up on, Live at the D. Welcome back. So much more coming up here on the day throughout Local 4. Tati from Live in the D, you've got a lot of good stuff going on, and it's Friday, right?
So we love Fridays. Fridays are a great time on Live in the D. And of course, we're going to have Greg Russell in with Real Talk so we can get all set up with what movies we need to see this weekend, whether we're streaming them or going to the theaters. You still like going to the movies?
I do love the movie experience. I'm a back row kind of person. Give me some popcorn. I'm a happy guy.
So we'll have Real Talk. Usually it's in my purse. I sneak it in there. Now you know. So when you see me, there's no questions. Dine in the D is
Not supposed to put out your business like that.
I mean, it's okay. I need to be free. I need to be free. It's the last day of Consumer Reports Week. And we're going to be talking about homeowners insurance and why it's skyrocketed, what you can do about it, and who some of the best companies are.
I was just shopping for insurance yesterday.
Well, you have to watch today. Get some tips. He said, you told all your business today, Tati.
You did,
I
you
need to be
did.
free, Nick. I can't do it anymore.
Are you a back row or like a middle row?
Back row type of person.
Back row, yeah. Yeah. If I get too close, I get like a headache looking around.
Yeah, I just like to feel like I'm in.
How do you feel about the IMAX where the screen goes all around you?
I enjoy it depending on the
do?
movie.
Oh.
It depends on the movie.
See, I can't do it. I don't like having to scan the room.
Ah, they're trying to keep us awake.
I'm a very simple guy. Just give me something easy. Make it a great Friday, everybody.